Welcome to the Empowered Catholic Podcast with Karen and Curtis Herbert, where we combine the best of theology, science, and coaching to inspire your empowerment. It's our mission to help you release the inner obstacles that are holding you back from embracing true Christian freedom, so the power of the Holy Spirit can manifest in you. So if you believe that God has more for you, if you want to believe that God has more for you, listen on, my friend. Hello, and welcome to the Empowered Catholic Podcast. You're here with Karen and Curtis Herbert.
Hi, everybody.
And we are just so excited, especially if you are a new listener, to have you with us today. So welcome if this is your first time listening. And we really have some exciting things to share with you today.
It's great that you're here, and we're excited to talk about signature strengths. And this is strengths and values and talents, gifts. It's that kind of thing. And we're going to connect that to happiness and your development as a Christian, your development as a whole person. This is a great topic. It's part of the positive psychology lens, the model that we're talking about. So we'll talk about signature strengths in the context of PERMA, among other things. And PERMA is what we were talking about on the last episode. It's kind of a checklist of how am I doing in these different categories and how would this help me flourish if I build some of them up or fill in some of the gaps. And there's a larger perspective as well. So now we're going to fly out to the cosmic perspective.
Awesome. Whoosh. Okay, I'm there.
Cosmic is a good Karen word. She likes the big perspective because we're after big things. To be a human is an important and exciting and profound quest that we're on. It has cosmic import, meaning for ourselves, the people around us, and in fact, for the whole universe.
For the whole universe.
But I digress. Pope Leo in August was talking to some, I think, business people, and he said that authentic human flourishing stems from what the church calls integral human development, or the full development of the person in all dimensions: physical, social, cultural, moral, and spiritual. And he contrasted that with the error that many of us in this modern Western society in particular, but I think globally, this idea that a flourishing life, well, the idea is it's often confused with a materially wealthy life or a life of unrestricted autonomy and pleasure. But Pope Leo says that's not enough. We see this especially in affluent societies where many people struggle with loneliness, despair, and a sense of meaningless. So that's kind of the city of God, the kingdom of God viewpoint, this development of the person in all dimensions.
Well, it really dovetails, Curtis, with last week talking about what is true happiness, at least in terms of what we can know about the human person, and is so much more than those antitheses that Pope Leo pointed out.
Pope Leo is also talking about the church's expertise in humanity. We know what it means to be fully human.
Well, we have the Christ who shows us the fully human individual.
That's right. And the happiness is essential to the human person.
Right.
And this is really a theme I keep coming back to because I think we can often miss this. We can feel that pursuing happiness, or better, we should say flourishing, pursuing true flourishing is somehow selfish or self-directed. Yet it is part of what it means to be truly human is to let this God-given drive and the way we're built in our nature to pursue flourishing, we're to allow that to operate.
So how does signature strengths, which you mentioned, help us to do that?
Signature strengths. As we exercise these signature strengths, and we might call them virtues, as we exercise these virtues, we are being our most authentic self and we are likely achieving something, and we're operating in a way that is intrinsically good. And this all contributes to our happiness. And from the positive psychology perspective, that speaks to authenticity, achievement, and perhaps positive emotion. When you're doing the good, you feel good about it.
Right.
And you might ask, what is a signature strength?
Well, that was my next question. Like, tell me more about them.
You could think of your signature strength as those virtues that you do best, those virtues that you go to first. And here we're following the Martin Seligman model. So he is perhaps the father of positive psychology, and he and his team, they went through all the wisdom literature they could get their hands on from the East and the West, from
Wow. That's
obscure tribes and well-known ones. And they came up with a list of virtues that are ubiquitous. So maybe not every single culture is kind, yet
Right.
kindness is almost everywhere recognized as a great virtue. And they use this approach because out of their research, they realized that, people love to practice excellence. They love to do something that's good. And this comes out of what they do well. It comes out of their virtues. And they have some set of virtues, a smaller subset, that they do particularly well, and those are their signature strengths. And the kind of things that we're talking about are wisdom and knowledge as a broad category. And they break it down, for example, curiosity, love of learning, ingenuity, social intelligence, perspective. There's lists then of virtues in these broad categories. Another category is courage, or as Catholics like to say, fortitude. He includes the virtues of valor, perseverance, and integrity. And in his system, he calls out specific virtues that you can practice. So courage is generally recognized as a virtue, yet he breaks it down a little more so that you could look at your life and say, well, is perseverance something I do?
Right.
Or something I do not? Or something in between. Other categories are humanity, and that's his word for charity, caritas. It includes, for instance, kindness and loving. Justice is a category. It includes citizenship, leadership, and so forth. Other broad categories are temperance, spirituality, like appreciating virtue, having gratitude, practicing hope, forgiveness. He puts humor into that category. Aquinas does too.
So you're saying that a certain set of these are going to be more natural strengths for each of us as an individual.
Yeah, you're going to have two or three that are your
Okay.
primary, one or two that are secondary, and then after that, some others.
And these are just going to show up a lot more in my life, correct? Because I'm going to naturally be drawn to using them in situations of life.
In a lot of ways, they're who you are, or at least they're who you act like.
Okay. So what's the benefit of me maybe isolating my top two or three signature strengths?
Often it tells you a lot about what you're experiencing in different areas of life. If you appreciate beauty and you're working at a lumber mill, you could realize there's some conflict there. Also, it helps you know what values you might choose to lean on in a different situation, because often life is complex and we have conflicting values that are trying to be honored at the same time, yet we need to prioritize some over the others. Signature strengths are a way of knowing what you do, what you like to do, and where you can be effective.
So if I have these more at the conscious level than the unconscious level, I could maybe be more intentional about using those that are most appropriate in a situation, or leaning into them even when I need a little support or strengthening.
Yes, being intentional. So Seligman has a kind of a low risk example of a woman he worked with. She was a graduate student. She was bagging groceries to get part-time money while she did her research, and she really did not like it at all.
The baggage or the
bagging
research?
The groceries.
Oh, bagging the groceries.
Yeah. Graduate students are known to be kind of a grumpy lot, so who's to say? Yet, after some discussions with Martin, she finally decided that she could bring her signature strengths into play at her grocery bagging job.
Okay.
And since she was somebody that was very social and had a lot of kindness, she resolved that whenever she was bagging somebody's groceries, she was going to make that the best interaction they had all day long.
Wow.
Interacting with her.
What a beautiful goal.
It was a beautiful goal. It played to her strengths, and she could often achieve something that was really nice. And so it served everyone.
Wow. And I bet it transformed her experience a lot. So I'm thinking of a couple things as I'm listening to you here. One is that, so in some models, so this is maybe what you would call the signature strengths model that kind of goes with the happiness model from last week. Would you say that?
Yeah.
Okay. So in other strengths models, I think there definitely is this theme of, well, you lean into your strengths. For example, with the working genius model, there's kind of this sense of, well, you want to really do the things that are aligned with your strengths, with your working genius, and not have too much of the other stuff. And maybe even, hire out the other stuff so that you can flourish in your work. But what I'm hearing from Seligman is with his signature strengths, you can kind of use them in any situation to really change that experience for yourself and for others. It's like she couldn't not bag groceries. She had to have that job. So she couldn't ditch it right then and find some other job that was more naturally aligned. But she could find her strengths in that job right where she was. And that's really speaking to me right now, because it definitely is aligned with this happiness theme, because what it's telling me is, well, you have a lot more control over your happiness than you think you do.
It's a very empowering truth.
Yes, exactly.
I have so much power over whether or not I'm going to be happy. And here is a great example of a woman using her intelligence and her gifts to create some flourishing for herself and for those around her.
Right. And it's very inspiring, because it's like, okay, if I'm looking at those 5 things that make me happy, my positive emotion, my engagement, my relationships, finding meaning, and finding authenticity and achievement in whatever I'm doing, I can sort of link my signature strengths to create those things for me, regardless of what is out there, which is very different than believing at some level that, well, it's those other situations that make me happy or unhappy, or it's those other people that make me happy or unhappy.
That's right. I'm intrigued that Martin and his colleagues really zeroed in on the virtue concepts, and they used the virtue language.
I was wondering, so they do use that language.
And he even makes the point that, hey, look at all these virtues, and guess what? You can grow in any of them.
Right.
And that is possible for you, and it's going to contribute to your flourishing. And what an empowering perspective that is. And that's, I would say, the true Catholic perspective is these virtues are invitations to excellence. They're invitations to something greater. They're inviting us into discovering how we can flourish, how we can be that person that we hope to be, that God has empowered us to be.
I think I'd like to just focus on this for a minute, if we could, Curtis, because I want our listeners to really hear that point that you just made. Because I do believe as Catholics, sometimes we get stuck with what is it we're really aiming for. And we can think, well, I'm trying to be a virtuous person. And it's about having the virtue or getting to the virtue or living the virtue. But both historically in the Catholic tradition and what we're seeing right here in kind of the human tradition, it's actually about you grow in the virtue so that you can have a more flourishing life, so that you can be happier, so that there's more of the happiness and the joy and the spirit-filled goodness and kindness and whatever that God has for you. Virtues make something possible. They're not an end in themselves, in other words.
That's right. That's a critical point you make. And there are strains of thought that we often find in the Catholic world that reduce virtue to a list of obligations. Here's a bunch of obligations that we have to live up to, and that's the essence of what it means to be good or even to be saved. Yet this is a distortion of God's plan for the human person, just like the idea that we need to be wealthy and have pleasure and autonomy is a modern distortion. The idea that the goal is to be well behaved is a different kind of distortion.
Right.
And while it's true we have to be well behaved, I guess, if you insist. No, of course it's important.
Yes.
Yet human flourishing is a big piece of this puzzle of what it means to be a human.
So do you have another example, Curtis, about a signature strength in action, maybe?
Well, Seligman talks about all kinds of virtues. When he's talking about marriage, for instance, he has a list of virtues that, hey, we might practice these, we might grow in these. He gives an example of Abraham Lincoln. He says, Abraham Lincoln was a master of attentive listening. History tells us that in addition to extraordinary sensitivity, he had a valise full of responsive expressions. He interjected into the unending tales of woe and complaint that filled his political life. Oh. I can't blame you for that. No wonder. And the like.
Wow. I hate to say this, but I think every politician should grow in this signature strength.
Well, we can all grow in listening.
Yes.
And active listening is a great skill. It's one that we've talked about from time to time. We've given workshops, I think, on active listening. We've taught it as a skill in the context of family life, workplace life, and so many other areas. It's a great example of a virtue that Lincoln practiced to great effect. And it's one that requires some perhaps innate talent, some experience, but it's also, there's a lot of things you can do to learn how to be a
it's
great
also
listener.
A skill.
So it's a good example of a virtue that you can grow in if you choose, if it's important. There's so many virtues, right? We can't choose them all.
I like this thought that you're just mentioning, which is, some of these are going to be natural to me, and so they'll be a little easier. And at the same time, the ones that perhaps aren't as natural to me are definitely learnable. They're skills that I can at least get better at, even if they won't ever approach, say, the signature strength level.
And what a different perspective that creates if you're in some kind of relationship and it kind of dawns on you one day, I need to learn how to listen better so I can do more better with this person. And that's an opportunity. That's empowering. And what a contrast with, oh, I'm a terrible listener. I'm bad. I need to flog myself until I listen better. And that's not empowering.
Right. maybe seeing a situation and asking even like, wow, what's a strength that would serve this situation? And even if it's not, say, in your top 3 or 4, it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity that's being given to you to learn something about that particular virtue and about growing in that. And I think you're right. Our automatic response as, faithful Christians is, oh, I'm not very good at that. I need to be better. Why am I not super perfect person? Well, because we're here to learn, and that's an opportunity for that.
And this is cool. There's a free online resource that will ask you a bunch of questions. It takes about 20 minutes, and it'll provide you instant feedback about what your signature strengths are and what your number 2 strengths are. And if you're interested in taking that free test, reach out to us. Go to empoweredcatholics.org. There's a number of ways to get in touch with us. Ask for the free signature strengths test, and we'll send you the link, and off you go.
I really, really highly recommend this to everybody.
Absolutely. It can be very helpful, Karen. Well, thanks for being here this week, everybody. And we invite you to tune in next week, and we'll continue our journey together of seeking the flourishing life and finding God's plan for us and for everyone. Thank you for being here with us this week. Visit our website at empoweredcatholics.com to learn more about us. And remember, as Pope Francis says, God comes to break open everything that keeps you closed in.